Back at JP Morgan, we used straight line depreciation to model asset values in a simple, predictable way. But why it is so commonly used and how does it impact the financial statements? Hi, I am Dheeraj Vaid, the co-founder of WallStreetMojo, and today I'll show you how straight line depreciation works and why it's a favorite in finance. Let's get started. So what is a straight line method of depreciation? Straight line method of depreciation is one of the most widely used depreciation methods, and in fact, it is one of the most simplest as well. Now, what happens in a straight line method is that you take a constant depreciation expense year over year, just like a straight line. So think of the useful life and charge a constant depreciation during that useful life. You will get the straight line method of depreciation. So let's take an example and also understand how the formula works. Now, let us assume that the company buys an asset of, let's say, $12,000. Okay. And this asset has a useful life of 5 years. Now, there's this concept of something called as salvage value. Now, what do we understand by salvage value is think of scrap value or the residual value. Now, let's say the company has used this asset for 5 years. They will be able to sell this asset as a scrap, for example, and recover some value out of it, right? Think of salvage value as that residual value. Okay. So let's assume that this is $2,000. Now, coming to how straight line depreciation is calculated, the formula is fairly simple. Now, in this case, what we do is think of your cost of asset. Okay, what is the cost of asset in this case? $12,000, right? Now, you subtract the salvage value, okay, and then divide it by the useful life. Now, this is your straight line depreciation. Now, what we have done here is this cost of asset is 12,000, salvage value is $2,000. So, we are saying that, okay, since we are able to recover $2,000 from that $12,000, let's subtract that so that we have what number? That is 12,000 minus 2,000, that will be 10,000. And the useful life is 5 years. So, let's find out how much the straight line depreciation comes out to be in this case. Fairly simple. This is 12,000 minus 2,000, right? Divided by 5, and that is equal to $2,000 as expense as a straight line depreciation. Okay. Now, this will be charged as a constant number for the next 5 years. Year 1, $2,000, year 2, $2,000, and so on and so forth in a straight line fashion. Okay. Now, let us look at the impact of the straight line depreciation expense on the income statement, balance sheets, and cash flows. Let us first understand the impact on the balance sheet. Okay. So, for understanding the impact on the balance sheet, I'll create a table first. Let's start with year 1, year 2, so on and so forth. Okay. So, we'll try to understand and study the pattern of all the 5-year impacts on the balance sheet, income statement, and cash flows. Now, when you talk about the balance sheet, there is this thing called as the opening balance, right? Opening balance of the asset at the start of the year. Then you will basically charge the depreciation expense, right? During the year. And then there will be this thing called as the closing balance. Now, what is closing balance? At the end of the year, after you have used that asset, at the end of the year, whatever is the asset amount in terms of book value, that's called as the closing balance. Okay. So, what's the opening balance in year 1? The opening balance in this case will be $12,000, right? Now, what's the depreciation expense because of straight line? We know that it is $2,000 for each year. Okay, so let me do one thing. I will put this $2,000 for each year across 5 years, right? Now, what happens to the closing balance? Because it started with $12,000, you reduce $2,000, so we get the closing balance as $10,000. So, at the end of the year 1 period, the company will report 10,000 as the closing balance or the book value of the asset. Okay. Now, let's move on to the year 2. Now, what is the opening balance for year 2? Opening balance for year 2 will be the closing balance of year 1, right? So, likewise, we can calculate the closing balance, right? Here as well. 10,000 minus 2,000. And we keep on doing that. So, I'll just copy and paste this formula and we will be able to find out the overall effect of the depreciation expense on the closing balance. Now look at this number, $2,000 at the end of fifth year, right? Now this is the salvage value that is there on the balance sheet. So that's why, we kind of reduce that salvage value so that at the end of the useful life, we have salvage value as the remaining balance. And that's the amount at which we can sell the asset. Okay. So that's the impact on the balance sheet. Now, coming to the impact on the income statement. Now, obviously, you must have guessed the impact on the income statement is fairly simple. It's just like this. You will basically charge the depreciation expense of $2,000 each year, right? So, this will reduce your net income by $2,000 every year. Okay. So, it's like constant depreciation each year. What about the cash flow impact? Now, think of the cash flow impact in year zero. What's happening is, I'm not talking about year one right now. I'm talking about year zero, before the start of year one. Now, what happens here is you have bought an asset of $12,000, right? Now, this is cash outflow, correct? So, essentially, you have bought this asset of $12,000 and this has to be a cash outflow, okay? So, this is the kind of impact which is there at the start of the year or in year zero. Now, what is the cash impact in year one and so on and so forth? Now, think of depreciation expense. What is depreciation expense? It's a non-cash expense. Now, are you spending any amount of cash over the next 5 years on this asset? No. So, essentially, you have no impact. Okay. For the next 5 years, no impact. So, that's how the depreciation expense can have in terms of impact on the cash flow statement.